Whispering podcast explores the multisensory pathways to connect with the other world, such as listening to messages in owls' hoots, singing to mermaids in a moonlit cove, or knowing what to give a gnome when they come to dinner. I'm Claire Casely, a fairy whisperer and researcher. Take my hand and I'll guide you safely through the enchanted twilight woodland where they are waiting to meet you. Hello and welcome to the Faery Whispering podcast. I'm Claire Casely, your host. I've been spending time with friends in nature and enjoying visiting some of my favourite fairy spots. Yesterday I visited Castle Drogo near Drew Stainton on Dartmoor. It's managed by the National Trust. It's a really beautiful building. It was the last castle to be built in England. The building began in 1911 and it was completed in the late 1920s because of the First World War intervening. A favourite part of any expedition or adventure in nature to these wonderful places is having a cup of tea and cake with my family and friends. It's a Casely family tradition, and I was interested to read newspaper reports of my great-great-grandfather, who was a Methodist minister, and how at the end of his sermons and church events, cake was always provided by my great-great-grandmother. Songs were sang and much tea was drank. I'm really thankful to my patrons for supporting this work. Without them, I couldn't do the podcast or any of this. Their pledges help support all of the technology that I need to create the podcast and resources. Also cover some of my travel costs to go and speak with people. This is a passion for me. It's a hobby at the moment, but I see this as my work alongside my fairy artwork and writing. This is really important to me, so any support is appreciated. If you don't want to commit to Patreon and a monthly payment, you can send me a one-off payment via my Buy Me a Coffee page, where you can buy me a book or as many books as you like. I always appreciate money towards books. If you've had any encounters with fairies or other paranormal phenomena and you'd like to contact me, you can email me claire@fairywhisperer.co.uk or use the contact form on my website, which is fairywhisperer.co.uk, and I spell fairy on my website name as Faery, which is the old archaic way of spelling fairy. Now on to the episode. This is the second of a 3-part mini-series packed to the brim with fairy sightings and lore. My guest Gem Albrow and family have witnessed lots of strange phenomena in their home and garden in Sussex. Much of it has been captured on their security cameras. Gem believes that nature spirits are responsible for most of this activity. I visited Gem earlier this year to talk with her and investigate her garden. Episode 3 will be released in December, and all episodes are being released early to my Faery Whisperer patrons. Please consider joining our welcoming community there if you can't wait until the final episode. We start this episode with Gem giving me a tour of the most active spots in her garden, and I use my dowsing rods to douse these spots.
Show you where I've seen bits and bobs.
Yeah.
So this is the corner here where I've seen the fairy in the white dress, and she likes to, for some reason, hang around this rabbit cage and then she will either zoom off over there, over the fence, or she'll go onto the deck, and I've seen her there a couple of times. And then the tree has got, I think, 5, 6, 7 spirits that live in it, which are not pixie or fairy or gnome or anything. They are tree spirits. That's the only way I can describe it. The tree behind is the one. Come a bit this way. So over there.
Oh yes.
There's that winged tree spirit. That's how I can describe it. So it's got like a long, slim, dark body, like a hot dog size, and it's got like grey wings. They're not wing shaped, but you can tell they're wings. And I've seen it come out of the tree, and it's spun, and then it's come diagonal. And then I've also seen it on a different day go straight over, behind the house, and then come from the opposite direction, go straight back to the tree again on separate occasions. So they're definitely creatures of habit, like humans.
Can we go down to that tree?
Sadly, no, because it belongs to that house.
Oh, I see.
And there's a big wall there, fence.
Can you? So there's nothing at the back of your.
Nope, nothing. Just a fence.
Oh right, just a fence there.
Yeah, just a fence. And I was sat here the other day, and then that's where the orb came down, and then it landed just there. So yeah, the little gnome type thing. So it stood there just for a second, and it came around me, and then went over it into the ivy. Yeah. And then up here it was on Beltane, or I think it was the day after Beltane.
Yeah.
So on the decking. And this is before we had this camera, which is the reason why I said I need another camera. So the sofa was a bit further out, and all you could see was sparks coming out from behind the sofa. So I was in bed, and I said to Dan, "Oh my God, Dan, go and check the barbecue."
Yeah, I can understand why, because you got your barbecue there.
Yeah.
How worrying, yeah.
We'd used it early, like 5 hours earlier, but I thought it's not the barbecue, and also they were much lower down as well, because you can see it's quite a high barbecue, but the sparks were literally coming from behind this little sofa, so it's quite a distance. But anyway, so he did. He went out. He grumbled. Fine. And he came back and he went, "It's not barbecue, it's the fairies." Got back in bed and went straight back to sleep. So then obviously I just lay there for a few hours and watched it, and it was here for about half an hour, and it was just, I never saw when it was. All I saw was these sparks coming out from behind the sofa, but it was Beltane, so I'm thinking maybe it was a fire elemental, which is a salamander, right?
Yeah. Gem talks about a fire elemental that appeared above her barbecue at Beltane, which is a fire festival, as well as many house fairies that live in the hearth or behind the stove. There are spirits that represent the fire itself. In northern European countries, they were called drakes, salamanders, or dragons. They are said to smell like rotten eggs, and their presence is usually only betrayed by their stench, though they are sometimes glimpsed as a flaming ball. They only take on the character of fire when they fly, when they look like streaks of flame or fiery balls with long tails. Otherwise they look like small boys with red caps and coats. They are house fairies who move into a house and keep the firewood dry and bring gifts of gold and grain to the master of the house.
Yeah, so I've seen Earth, I've seen the gnomes. Air, I've seen the I think the sylph fairies, the ones that have moved the pumpkin seeds, because they're meant to be shaped like clouds, which is what the little lights look like. But if you zoom in on them, you can see they are tiny little female fairies. They're tiny, but you have to really zoom in on them.
Did you see? Sorry to interrupt. I've just got to say, did you see the interview that I did with Kate Hago-Ray where we had orbs flying around?
Yeah.
So it's really hard with the technology I have at home, but I slowed down those orbs as much as I could, and I swear, one of those orbs that was flying in front of her towards the end of our chat looks like a little being.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've seen them myself.
Yeah,
they will
like
do.
A little tiny being, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen that with my own eyes. Like, that is like a typical fairy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen them in all sorts of shapes and sizes, really tiny to, 8-10 inches, possibly. The Fairy Queen, I call her that, but just because she looked so beautiful and regal. But anyway, so down there is where on my Instagram I've got something called The Gathering. So we've got like a bearded gnome and a fairy, and then there was another, just here on the left of the wall, there was a fairy that looked like she got like bonnet. She was wearing a bonnet.
Wow.
And so the shapeshifters, they use these objects here. And it sounds bonkers. I know it does, but I've seen, there's one that looks like a cow sometimes. This is the wall where there was this white figure that I've caught that ran up the steps, that ran along the wall. So that was quite big.
Oh yes.
That was probably about 2 feet.
Yeah.
That was quite a big one. And then on the where we stood now is where just here is where Mr. and Mrs. Gnome popped up from the ground. And then on the steps I've got 4 or 5 different white beings. So they're like, have you seen the pictures? They're not human shaped. I don't know. They're like like you draw, like a kid would draw a ghost. They're like that shape.
Right.
Yeah, but they're.
I can't remember if I've seen that one.
I'll show you.
Yeah, show me.
Yeah. So they like to kind of like stop on the steps for a second. Yeah.
Oh.
Here is in the ivy. Here is where there was that golden orb with all the different changing faces.
Yes.
So that was amazing. That was one of the mind-blowing ones. So it was literally looked like a golden orb at the top of the ivy, and it must have been like a window in from their world into mine. They were checking out the garden because there was all these, and I've screenshotted all the different faces, and you can clearly see you've got female faces, male faces, and they've all got black eyes. I've seen. Oh, there's another fairy over by the laburnum tree which has got a white gown on, and you can see his foot, and he's got big black eyes. So I think a lot of the fae do have black eyes.
Yes.
But I think they must be pixies. Well, they're a bit, not evil, but they're a bit like menacing, some of them looking.
I've seen that face, and like you say, it's like something looking through from another dimension.
One of the females, which she's got more of a softer expression, because some of the males, they do look like, you wouldn't mess with them in a dark alley. But maybe that's just how they look. I don't know. But they're not fairies, definitely not. But so that's why I say pixies, because pixies are a bit cheeky, aren't they?
Yeah, the way that I've seen pixies, they always look mischievous.
These definitely do.
And you wouldn't want to mess with them, even though I don't think they're all malevolent. But I think
they don't feel evil.
No, you wouldn't want to upset them.
Yeah, you want to. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly what I would say. Yeah,
I know you're listening.
That was just there. So that must have been. They must have opened up a door. I mean, because this whole wall is the entrance to their world, definitely, because they all go into the wall. But this must have been some kind of. I don't know, I've seen it, we see it in movies where like a witch has got a cauldron and then she'll cast a spell and then the cauldron suddenly will show her exactly, it's in the Disney film, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maleficent. She shows her, mirror on the wall, and then shows her a picture of who she wants to look at. And perhaps that was a bit like that, But it's like they took it in turns to have a look through. And it was there for a good couple of minutes. And then one of the females' faces... I've got a photo of this, and I've posted it on the Instagram page. There's a bald-looking goblin face. Wow. Yeah, goblin is probably the best way to describe it. So, but yeah, and I've seen so many faces in this wall, so many. And this is where I saw the tribal face, and I've seen a few tribal faces. Here is where the tall fairy queen came out. And then what else have I seen? Oh. For a while, I've seen lots of lights as well, just lights. But you can tell that they've got consciousness, though. They're not just lights. Even though there's no faces, but just a bit further down there is, and it hasn't been for a while, but it used to come every night. There was 3, I think it was 3 or 4 golden. They're not completely spherical shaped. They're odd shaped, but they're kind of round. But 3 or 4 of them in a cluster, and they'd always be on the same bit of the ivy, and they'd just appear, and they'd last for about. They just stay there, shining through the lights through the ivy. I mean, there's nothing you can see around. There's nothing that could cause lights in the ivy to appear. But anyway, so they'd stay for a few minutes, and then they'd just disappear again. So they came several times, but I haven't seen them for a while.
Fairies is the name given to a gathering of fairies in Sussex. When I remote viewed Gem's garden, I saw that there was a portal symbolised by a daisy opening and closing and a silver pyramid. A silver pyramid can mean that the portal is open and very active. There was a gathering of fairy faces within the gold light of this portal. Gem also showed me an image of a pixie man that closely resembles the one that I drew.
Mm-hmm. So I saw there was a tiny little figure that jumped from the cabin, jumped all the way, and it landed about where your feet are actually, and it was just a tiny little man about this big.
Oh, do you think it was the gnome again, or was it something else?
No, because he wasn't a gnome, because he didn't have a pointy hat on. Not stereotyping, but
sorry, gnomes.
He was like one of the cartoon-looking ones. I've seen loads of the cartoon. Yeah, it's the only way I can describe it.
The little gnome you captured, his face was very cartoon. It is like a typical gnome, isn't it? His face.
Yeah, the one down there.
Yeah, that was by the one by the plant pots. So the one that you captured, was it by one of these plant pots that appeared?
Oh, him.
Yeah.
So yes, he was. So, but he wasn't. I know what you mean, but he was more fey looking. These cartoon ones, they really do look cartoon. I'll show you. But yeah, they do. And they tend to be a lot of the shapeshifters as well. They just look like animations. Some of the faces do. It's amazing. Yes, there was him. And then what else did I see? This blue plant pot here was Harry and Scarlet were outside playing, and I saw this big blackish brown object, and it came from over there, and it came down, and then it stopped here, and it turns out it was a little Tinkerbell fairy. So, because when you first look at it, it looks like the size of it does look like an insect, a bit like a dragonfly. It's got wings, but then as that one got to the decking, you could see it was a pretty fairy with brown hair in a little tutu skirt. And she's got very pointed wings as well that were behind her. So very much like the flower fairy type fairies. So she's like one of the first ones that I've seen like that. And then...
Do you think it's attracted to
It was this plant. Yeah. Definitely. Because I've seen...
It's lavender, is it? Or
I don't know.
rosemary?
I should know, it's my garden. It's lavender.
Lavender. Yeah, it's amazing.
They look the same, don't they?
Yeah.
Even though it hasn't got flowers on. And then, so a day before that little fairy, this is when, do you remember me saying, is this an insect or is this a fairy? Because I saw the same kind of thing, but a lighter brown colour, come out of the wall here, and then it went up over there. So it was the same thing that I saw. So, and then the following day, it changed into a fairy. So I was like, oh, okay, it's definitely a fairy, not an insect. Because what insect of that size, dragonfly size, would come out of the wall?
Well, this is a solid wall, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I need to explain to people that what we're looking at is a wall.
A flint wall.
But then it's an old gateway, isn't it, as well? So we're looking at 2 gate posts, brick gate posts, and the middle, where the gateway used to be, has been filled in with a similar wall as the rest of the wall. So we've been talking about this idea of maybe this being some kind of old portal that the fairies are using, an energetic pathway.
Yeah.
But I've seen you've got a few of those images, haven't you? Videos of things emerging.
Lots.
From the wall.
Hundreds.
and it's just a solid... It's basically just like cement with flintstones in it. There's no way anything... There's no crevices. There's no space for anything that size to emerge from a hole or anything. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes. Yeah, and there's if I grab my phone, I can show you some images of
Okay. Yeah.
of some.
So Gem's just showing me an image she's got of what she calls the
Alice in Wonderland caterpillar, because that is exactly what he looks like. So he came out from, guess where, the ivy wall, and he was just chilled out. He was really slow, actually. He's one of the few ones that was just meandering around like he was, stoned. He really was, like the caterpillar. And he came out of the wall, and he came along the garden, the grass, and then he got to about the chimney, and then just turned round. And as he gets to the chimney, you can see that he's decreased in size dramatically. And by the time he gets back to goes past the tree stump, and then he goes back towards the ivy, and he's tiny. He's gone from my hand size to half my little finger. He's decreased, and that was in about 2-3 seconds. But as he first starts his journey, he's on his back and his wings are out, and he's got 3 points, maybe 4 on each side, exactly like the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland. He's got a bulbous nose, and he's even got like a quiff for his hair, which again I noticed is like the Alice in Wonderland caterpillar. So now I'm thinking, did that artist, and I did do a bit of research on him, but I couldn't find a lot, but he was drawn in the 1800s, I think. Yeah, or he was, so it was around then anyway. Sorry, born, the artist.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't find anything else more about him. But yeah, so, and then by the time he gets to the ivy, he's completely changed form as well.
The caterpillar in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is portrayed in the book and illustrations as sitting on a mushroom smoking a hookah pipe. He advises Alice to take a bite from the mushroom to change her size. He is described as being blue and is depicted with a humanoid face in illustrations.
But you can look at that on the Instagram if you want to see that.
And the intriguing thing is that with some of your photos you can see bits of colour in them, even though it's mostly these nighttime images.
Yes. So
some of them show like red, green, fairy colours, don't they?
Yeah, so you can definitely see that the one fairy, I call him the fairy in the red jacket because he's wearing, a male fairy is wearing a red jacket. So he was the one with the lion. So this is an interesting one. I see lots of little creatures that peep out of the ivy and then go back in. So this one kind of looks like it's got a nice open round face, but then it's got like a hat on that's got little horns.
Oh, I can't see in this light very
it's difficult
well,
we're outside, but yeah. So it's like a humanoid face, a round, nice, friendly, open face, but it's got a hat on with horns, like the classic devil horns that you would draw. Yeah. So a lot of them do, little ones peep out, amongst the ivy and then go back in again. There's just so many, Claire. I mean, look, on my Instagram account, I've got 147 posts. I only started this page perhaps a month ago.
What do you think has instigated this activity? Can you trace it back to anything? Do you think it's just your interest in them? Or has something happened to...
Nothing. I just think they've always been here and I've never noticed.
And now you're noticing they're showing up.
Well, there's always been things that have happened inside the house, like noises that I've heard in the bedroom, and I just put it down to a previous resident that visits occasionally. And then for the last couple of years, there was the orbs in the lounge, and then I would never have even known they were here unless they hadn't moved the pumpkin seeds. So, and that was just incredible because that was a daily occurrence. I would take them off the log and then they would replace them through the night. And then I eventually saw them do it. One tiny little white light.
Where's your log?
It's just here.
Ah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, summer's coming and, these plants have grown, but at the time they weren't there. But the pumpkins I placed, here's the stem of what's left and another bit. So I placed them there, and they were there. They've been there since November, early November. And it's only like when they started, they were solid for such a long time. It's only when they started to start getting squishy and then opened up that, and I walked past a few times and I could see the seeds there, and went about my day. And then obviously at that point, that's when whoever it was decided, we're going to get her attention now. So they literally, there was a handful of seeds that went from there to, they were always here, always in the same spot.
Okay.
And there was, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 seeds, something like that. So I swept them off. Look. Where I swept them off. And then they'd go and get more the next day. And it was always during the night. And I'd come back the next day and they were there. So, so that happened several times until all the pumpkin seeds had gone. But, I mean, in the end, took the hint and stopped removing them. But then, the light, the fairy, turned up every night anyway, just to check that they were still there, I guess. I don't know what the significance of the seeds being there is. I still don't know. If it was to get my attention, it worked. Yeah. I don't know.
Gem's experience of seeing the pumpkin seeds being moved nightly onto the tree stump that she mentioned in the last episode is reminiscent of the stories of helpful fairies in Sussex and elsewhere. Master Dobbs helps humans with their toil, or when they are in need. Nevertheless, they tend to work in secret and can get rather upset if they are disturbed. Such is the case with a common theme in fairy stories, where some fairies are working away and one complains of sweating, at which point they are disturbed by the person they are helping. These are seen by the locals as cautionary tales to explain to people how to treat fairies. There's a few stories of sweating fairies in Sussex. I did some research on pumpkins in magic because of what Gem said about the pumpkin seeds. So, goddess rulers of pumpkins are Ocean and Hecate. The seeds are connected to fertility, abundance, wealth, love, prosperity, and good luck. Pumpkins can be used for protection, divination, banishing, and prosperity. Pumpkin and pumpkin seeds represent fertility, abundance, wealth, love, prosperity, good luck, and can attract money. They can also be used for healing, honouring the moon, and divination, or contacting the spirit world. They have a long history of being the one vegetable that can ward off evil spirits on Halloween night. The fruit is also sacred to the Yoruban goddess Oshun, and is offered to her in exchange for wishes granted concerning love, money, and fertility. You can throw a handful of pumpkin seeds into a river and ask for financial prosperity. Fairies are said to obsessively count things. Therefore, if someone pours sugar, salt, grains, or even pumpkin seeds in front of them, they must stop whatever they are doing and count every grain or seed. Could the lights Gem saw moving the pumpkin seeds be a helpful fairy counting them? There is a belief that fairies cannot count beyond 5, which contravenes the belief that they can count a multitude of grains of corn or sugar or even pumpkin seeds. Because if it was an animal doing it, they would have taken the seeds and buried them or something, like squirrels and things. They wouldn't just plonk them on there, would they? They would have taken them away. So
if it was an animal, I think that they would have eaten them as well.
Yes.
And none of them were... There was loads, and none of them were eaten. They were just moved. And would an animal grab a handful of... Well, would an animal move the pumpkin seeds from there to the log, the tree stump, in a pile, always in the same place?
Yeah.
Would it
No.
No.
It wouldn't. No. Like you say, it wouldn't.
Especially, I cleared them off, and then would it do it again during the night for the next day, and then again, and then again, and then, after 4 or 5 times I stopped removing them because I just felt a bit mean.
Yeah. So, no, like you say, I mean...
Yeah, so if
they would have taken them away, they would have stored them in, I don't know, stuffed them in their cheeks.
They would have stored them or eaten them, if it was a mouse or a rat,
Taken them back to a nest or something.
Yeah, sure.
So,
but anyway, I know it wasn't, because it was a tiny little white light that was, and it would come off here, and it would hover over the stones, and it would go down there, and then it would fly back to the pumpkins, and then it would go back onto the tree stump again. I keep saying log store because we've got a log store on the drive where we keep the logs for the fire, but yes, tree stump.
How long was that used to be a tree since you've lived here? Yeah.
I've been here, 13 or 14 years, so sadly it died, and then it was left at that, and it's been like that for 10 years, more than that, 10, 11, 12 years, a long time. However, this is very interesting. Just right over the other side of the wall, the neighbour's garden, they did have a beautiful elder tree, and they removed it about a year ago, last year, and I was really upset about it. And they removed it because they wanted the space for the shed, and they've got chickens there, etc. So, were they living in the tree and then they moved to the wall, or were they using both, or who knows?
And elderflower trees are one of the trees associated with fairies.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe they were.
Maybe they were, yeah.
The tree stump in Gem's garden seems to be a centre of activity. Dead trees continue to be supported by surrounding trees. Perhaps the nature spirits see it as a place of offering, because Gem often places crystals there, and she also placed the pumpkin nearby. Elder trees are sacred to fairies in fairy belief. There is a belief from Denmark that a fairy being called the Elder Mother inhabits and protects the tree. Bad luck is said to befall anyone who removes any part of the tree or cuts one down without asking permission of the Elder Mother first and gifting an offering in return. Thomas Keatley, in his fairy mythology, says that if a Danish peasant wanted to take any part of an elder tree, he used to say 3 times, "O Hildemar, O Hildemar, let me take some of the elder, and I will let thee take something of mine in return." If something wasn't given in return, then bad luck would befall the person taking something from the tree.
I never saw anything, never noticed anything, but I wasn't looking for it, so the only thing I was looking at when I first logged onto the ring camera was to see what was moving, the pumpkin seeds.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I was amazed to see it was this little white light, and then I was more amazed, when I kept seeing it moving from the pumpkins back to the tree stump, and then even more amazed when on the decking there was this huge flash, and then I found out that it was the Pixie King. And then that's the start of it, really, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. I'm really, really, really thrilled they're here. I can't tell you how pleased I am.
Yeah.
I hope they stay. I think they're going to stay. I think they've been here a lot longer than I realise.
Yeah, who knows how long they've been here. I'm really intrigued to use my dowsing rods and see what I can pick up.
Yeah.
Shall I do that now?
Yes, please do that, yeah.
These are some places in Sussex that are associated with fairies. Chanctonbury Ring, Beeding Hill, Truleigh Hill, Sisbury, Harrow Hill, Kithurst Clump, Pulborough Mount, Tarbury Hill, Milland Church, Devil's Dyke, King's Standing, Mount Pleasant, Lewes Pin Well, Burlow Castle, Kingly Vale, the Trundle. Dew Ponds in Sussex were believed to be fairy haunts too. These are small natural pools of water. There are several places in Sussex with Puck or Pook in the name. Puck or Pook is another name for fairies that mislead travellers. They are known as pixies or will-o'-the-wisps in my part of the world, which is Devon. This name is attributed to many places in Sussex that are reputed fairy haunts, such as Pook Ride, Pookbourne, Pook Hall, Pookcroft, Pook Hole, Pook Church Wood, Puck Church Parlour, which is a cave in Seaford Head Cliffs. And there are 2 Pook Hills in Sussex, one at Alceston and the one Rudyard Kipling could see from his house at Burwash, which is on a spur of downland. It used to be the name of a district in Burwash too. So Gem and I have just been around her garden doing some dowsing. I brought my dowsing rods with me. And the idea of dowsing rods is that they're an extension of your body's energy. So it's nothing magical. It's just that they show you what your body or your energy field is picking up from the place. So Gem wanted to know about energy lines going through her garden. I picked up 2 that were crossing. So there's one that goes from the old gateway that's now blocked up across the back of her property, across her decking, and then there's another that comes up and crosses over it. And the point at which it crosses is where Gem has seen lots of these beings coming up.
Yeah, especially the gnomes. The gnomes, the Pixie King. Lots of the little figures stop on the steps there in that area. An awful lot. It seems to be the central hub. Yeah.
Yeah. So running in that direction up the side of, it's hard to explain. At the side of Gem's art studio, where she has her crystals, and at the side of the house is an underground water pipe.
Yes.
Yeah. So running water is believed to carry psychic energy, and then crossing over that, forming a kind of a crossroads, is this old pathway. Excuse me. So where those 2 points cross is where you've seen.
Yes, a lot of them like to congregate in that area, or they've arrived there. Yes.
Yeah.
Like the Pixie King and the Gnomes, and there's last week there was beautiful. The first one that I've seen, which was again dusk, so they're starting to come out in the daytime as well, or early evening, was a female fairy that was made up of all the colours of the rainbow. She was absolutely beautiful. So she appeared twice actually. She, in the space of about a minute, she was as an orb. They travel as like an orb shape, but she wasn't really in a oval or spherical shape. She was in just a mist with an elongated bit off that as well. But yeah, I saw her twice, and when I paused it, I could see that she was clearly looking at the camera as well. She's looking straight at the camera, but she's a female full of all the different colours of the rainbow. Absolutely gorgeous. Mm. Yes.
Mm. And yeah, I've seen that photo as well. Mm. And then, we walked along the wall, didn't we? And I asked where the portal was in the wall.
Yes.
And the place that I stopped.
Yes. I said, you're absolutely spot on. That's exactly where they come out. Yeah.
So
they come out of the top as well, but a lot of them do come out from just there. Yeah, where you stopped, which I found really, really amazing, actually.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my rods crossed over at this point in the hedge, in the ivy hedge, where Gem sees a lot of, on camera, sees a lot of these orbs beings coming out of the wall.
And returning. Yeah.
And returning.
It's like their entrance, exit,
yeah.
doorway.
And then I identified another place where my rods crossed over beside the laburnum tree, where Gem also sees little beings, and it was near where you saw the gnome appear.
Yes, that little gnome.
Yeah.
The one that came, he was an orb, he came from the other garden, over the fence, swooped down by the bush, which is underneath the laburnum tree, paused to have a look at me, so I was sat in the middle of the lawn, and then changed back into an orb and travelled past round me, quite close to me, and then he went into the ivy where you stood and found the spot exactly there.
The symbolic meanings of laburnum trees are blackness, forsaken, and pensive beauty. It gets its latter association since the flowers are so pretty, even if the tree is incredibly poisonous. Its other names are golden rain or golden chains because its yellow flowers hang down. Some lore that comes with these toxic trees are that if you cut down a laburnum tree, a neighbouring laburnum will refuse to bloom the following season in protest. I couldn't find any fairy lore about laburnum. However, artist Cicely Mary Barker created a delightful illustration of the laburnum fairy and a poem. Also, when I was dowsing, I found an energetic portal by this tree.
But they do use the whole of that wall, but the majority of them do come and go from that section of the wall there. Or the gateway, which is at the top, or they come out of the top of the ivy. Yes. And occasionally the tiny little ones do like to go around the tree stump as well. Yes. It's very busy.
Have you thought of writing a book about all of this? Because there's so much, isn't there? And I'm sure
That is a really good question. Well, I just thought I'll start by documenting this because, why would you not?
Yeah.
It's incredible. So I've documented it in my phone. I've got quite a big storage on my iPhone, but it's starting to slow down a bit now. But I don't really know what to do with the videos. So I've got the Instagram account, which is a private account, but you can put the links to it if anybody wants to come and have a look. Because the reason why it's private is because I'm really cautious of. I don't want them to end up all over YouTube and be in some horrible video and be exploited. So that's why. But yeah, anybody that's interested and would like to see the pictures and videos is really welcome to. That's where I started. But I did think about perhaps, I don't know, documenting it, making a book, maybe. It was a quick passing thought, but I'm surprised I've got with it.
I think your stories and your experiences and what you've learnt about what you feel fairies are is all really amazing, valid information that needs to be out there.
All I can say about it is expect the unexpected. With them, there are so many. Like I said, I know that some of them I've not seen before. Some of them I see quite regularly, and from what I have seen with them changing form whilst they're moving, and it's just mesmerising and also mind blowing. But yeah, I would love to find somebody else that I could chat to about it, but. That's got a similar. There must be somebody else. There must be somebody out there.
There must be. I told you about the interview that I saw. I can't remember who it's with. It's on YouTube with a woman in America who's talking about ring cameras and how they pick up.
Oh yes, I did hear that. You very kindly sent that to me. That was on Howard Hughes. The Unexplained.
Howard Hughes, someone he interviewed recently was talking about how you can see all these anomalies on ring cameras.
I could find that actually.
Look.
Yeah, I did hear that, and I thought that was very interesting. And she did say that these, this is the unseen world, and it's always been there. Actually, just sidestep that for a second. So. In the podcast, in the interview with Joe Hickey Hall, I did say that we talked about all the different experiences that I've had throughout my life, and there's been a lot. But when was it? August last year, my aunt and uncle had a hotel in North Devon, deepest, darkest North Devon. It's like it was, and they no longer own it now, thank goodness me, because it is terrifying. It's so haunted, and there's negative things there, and it was just terrifying. And they always, pick on me because I'm open, and they always have done. But whilst I was there, I had a lucid dream, and I've just realised the significance of it. So,
okay.
As in, like, very recently, not just this very second realised, but... So I was in the dream, I was outside of the hotel, stood next to who I've now realised I think is my guide, or one of my guides, somebody that I felt that I knew, had a hood on, couldn't see the face, I think it was male, but anyway, so I'm stood next to them, they're on my left, and the hotel's behind me, and I can see all the stars above me, except for the sky, and there's all these things whizzing past me, there's millions of things whizzing past me, and my guide says to me, but they've always been here, you just can't see them. And I thought about this last week, I thought, hang on, was this again another message from the universe to tell me about what's going on in my garden? Because exactly what I saw in my dream about all this traffic going past at a million miles an hour, millions of different beings and all different objects, is what I've seen in this garden on the camera. Sometimes it is so busy that there's so much going on that you can see the beings flying around, but there's so much of them that it's difficult, because we're all overlaying as well, it's difficult to see them. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so many of them. And other times there can be in the garden, there can be on the camera, it's a really quiet night, I don't know, they've all gone to the cinema or something, who knows, but there's like, there's a handful of them, but and every now and again there is thousands all at the same time. So I'm thinking, hang on a second, was that some kind of premonition, or was that a message, or was that like, same with the pumpkin seeds, was that like the next message for them to say, look, come on, she's got to notice now? Because back in January there was the little orb in the cabin and didn't really do anything about it apart from say, oh look, this has happened. So is that a message from my guide? I mean, is that from the fairies to try and subconsciously reach me to let me know that they're here, or am I meant to know they're here? I kind of think I am meant to know, and I'm convinced that they know that I know because they look at the camera. So, but now I know what, because there is an unseen world that people talk about, isn't there? There's different dimensions that we can't see. And I don't think, because I think if human beings could see everything that's going on all the time, I think that it'd be quite a terrifying world to live in, really, to be honest. So. Yeah.
And I was saying this earlier, talking to a friend, I feel that in folklore they talk about people seeing fairies. I don't feel that all of those stories are made up. I feel that there's seeds of truth in folklore. It's got to have come from somewhere.
Yes.
And I feel that there was a time, perhaps before the industrialisation, the 1800s, when people were perhaps seeing these beings more clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be something in that. I mean, they didn't have all the technology that we have today. They weren't distracted by that, were they? So.
But now we have technology that's starting to pierce the veil.
Isn't that amazing? But I mean, everything happens the way it's meant to. Everything for a reason, absolutely. I do think in the last few years, especially since lockdown, I think it's all ramping up a gear as well.
It'd be nice if the gnome could turn up, wouldn't it? Show himself. One of the gnomes, or two of the gnomes. Gnomes, could you come tonight?
Yeah, because I forgot to
yourselves.
Say, apart from the little ones that, the 4 or 5 inch ones that came from the ground on the decking.
Yeah.
There's the really large one. There's 2 different ones that I've seen. The younger one that appeared that sat on the roof of the conservatory, and then very recently there was another one the same size but older that appeared and sat on the branch in the tree, the laburnum tree.
Wow.
Yeah. There was also the male fairy that appeared in the laburnum tree, so I saw him a couple of times. So he got quite a thick nose, but he's humanoid looking, so male fairy. He'd got black hair as well, so I saw him a couple of times in the laburnum tree. He's
gosh.
He was a bit like, kind of like a Robin Hood type character, like stood there, like, you know, very strong young man, like overlooking the garden.
Yeah, quite nonchalant. Yeah.
So yes. But yes, let's see if we can see a gnome, because I don't see them very often actually. The ones that I see every day, I see the Toblerones. Yeah, the fairy worms every day.
Yeah, so fairies, we're going to be in the garden tonight, me and Gem. We're going to sit in the garden. If any of you want to show yourselves or come and say hello, be brave and come and say hello to us, that would be wonderful. But we're just going to be here to connect with you, and we'll see what happens.
Yes.
See what happens. There is a method of raising fairies that I read about, which was told by a nurse to some children in Stenning in 1952. This is the story of how she called the fairies. Well, Mrs. Jasper, she said there was only one way to bring 'em. You must do it on a moonlit night, just when the pollen was ripe on the catkins. I was always teasing and praying her to show me, and at last one night she took me with her into the woods. I never shall forget it. She made me sit on the stump of an old tree in a little clearing where the moonlight came through, and she stood a few steps away with 2 small branches in her hands. I saw the gold dust flying from the catkins as she waved them gently and sang a little song over and over in a funny, low, drawling, husky voice, just as though she was coaxing 'em. And this is the chant. Come in the stillness, come in the night, come soon and bring delight, beckoning, beckoning, left hand and right, come now, come tonight. Come in the stillness, come in the night, come soon and bring delight, beckoning, beckoning, left hand and right, come now, come tonight. Come in the stillness, come in the night, come soon and bring delight, beckoning, beckoning, left hand and right, come now, come tonight. And then the person says, it almost drew me off my stump to hear her, and the dog came creeping to her feet. No, I didn't see anything, nothing but the gold dust falling from the catkins and her fluttering hands. But she said she'd seen them often, but they only came when she was alone. They didn't care about company. They'd come sliding down a branch to her and laugh and disappear again. The dog, he couldn't bear them. He'd bristle up and growl and slink into the bushes. He knew they weren't canny. This share about where she says the fairies wouldn't come to the woman when she was with anyone else, only when she was alone, reminds me what a couple of my guests have said about their fairy encounters, that it was only when they were alone that they'd experienced the fairies, and if they had anyone with them, if they tried to take people to see them, such as Jane in the episode about dragons and fairies that we recorded, where she spoke about her childhood encounter with fairies at the bottom of her garden, that if she tried to bring her brother to see them, then they wouldn't appear for him. You can hear what happened when Gem sat out in the evening and tried to contact the fairies, and also a bit more of a chat about the nature spirits in her garden in the final episode, which is out in December, or will be out for Samhain on our Faery Whisperer Patron community. So join us there if you want to hear the final episode of this wonderful share. And I'm very thankful for Gem inviting me and welcoming me to her home so that I could investigate her garden and connect with the fairies there. Thank you to all of my listeners for supporting the podcast and for listening to the end. My cat Missy has joined me for this recording of my outro. Remember to keep your heart open and be the change. Bye for now, and see you next time.